The Provider Output Summary Report is DHSV's replacement of the original Titanium Provider Productivity Report. This report is used for looking at output of individual providers, as in dentists, therapists, etc. It is the sort of report you would run on a monthly basis for a calendar month, as well as a financial year to date, to examine productivity of your clinicians. If wanting to get the total output of a clinic or your whole agency, this is not the report to use. Rather, the Service Mix Report, as described in one of the other training videos in this series, should instead be used for that purpose. The Provider Output Summary Report is essentially two reports in one. As I will briefly show you here, the report is divided into a left half and a right half. The left side provides summary output, including individuals treated, visits and DWARs, etc. for each clinician. This is the same information that is displayed in the header of the Service Mix Report, where the same rules apply for the output measures. Therefore, the figures in a Service Mix Report run for an individual provider will match those of the Provider Output Summary Report run under the same filter parameters. The right half of the Provider Output Summary Report displays appointment data for the provider, such as the number of appointments, hours of appointed time, etc. In a sense, this represents the provider input that can be divided by the output on the left side of the report to measure individual clinician productivity. The Provider Output Summary Report is accessible under the Productivity Reports group of the Titanium Reports menu. Displayed here are the available filters for running the Provider Output Summary Report. Your agency's password code needs to be entered in the agency code field as described in the report's overview video. The start and end date defines the reporting period, where the report generated will provide service output for treatments completed within that date range and appointment data for appointments that are scheduled within that date range. The item code drop-down list defines whether you wish the provider output in the report to measure state-funded activity or child dental benefits activity, or both. This filter is identical to the one in the Service Mix Report, with options including State MPA DWAR. Choosing this means the left half of the Provider Output Summary Report will calculate the individuals, visits and DWARs based on the standard 3-digit numeric service items that are funded under state funding via DHSV, such as 011, 012, etc. The two CDBS options will generate a report specifically on the Child Dental Benefits Schedule activity, as the report will filter to just the 5-digit items beginning with the 88 that are funded by Medicare. The Provider Output Report displays the total value of services for each provider, and this can be either at the dental weighted activity or DWAR value, or can be at the claim dollar value that represents the value of treatment items at the Medicare CDBS fee rates. Choosing the State MPA and CDBS DWAR option will produce a Provider Output Summary Report for both the state-funded and Child Dental Benefits Medicare-funded activity. This is the most common option that would be selected so that you can measure all of the output of each of your clinicians. The Course of Care Type drop-down filter applies only to the output data displayed on the left half of the report. It allows that output to be filtered to emergency, general or denture activity. The private option represents the output under private practice entered through the private course of care type. A group option of emergency, general and denture combined has been set up to represent all the publicly funded output. That is, the group option excludes private practice output. Most commonly, the Provider Output Summary Report is generated selecting the All option for the Course of Care type filter so that you can capture all activity for each provider in measuring their full output. The Appointment Type drop-down filter applies only to the appointment data displayed on the right half of the report. The options for this filter include either public or private appointments, or both. It is important when running the Provider Output Summary Report that the Course of Care type and the appointment filters match. If private is selected as the course of care type, then the appointment type filter should also be filtered to private appointments. Conversely, if emergency, general and/or denture is selected for the course of care type filter, then the appointment type filter should be filtered to public appointments. Failure to do this will result in a report with output but no appointment data, or vice versa. A sample of the provider output summary report is displayed here, which will be described in more detail. It is important to note the provider output summary only reports on providers that are assigned as internal in the provider screen under the File menu. That is, the report excludes the large number of private providers that have performed work under vouchers. When viewing the report, if private practitioner codes appear in the output, check the provider screen as shown here to make sure those providers are assigned as external. Similarly, if an internal provider at your clinic is missing, it is likely they have been assigned incorrectly as an external provider in the provider screen. Once that is corrected, the report can be run again immediately, and the missing provider's output and appointments will appear in the report. As I indicated earlier, the left side of the report displays the output data for each provider or clinician. On the right side, only the appointment data for those providers listed on the left side will be displayed. That means if a provider has no output but does have some appointments in the period, they will not appear on the report. The first few columns of the report display the provider details as recorded in the provider screen under the File menu. It includes the provider code, provider name, provider type, dentist, therapist, and the provider registration type, which identifies whether the provider is a student or not. The service output section provides the number of individuals treated by the provider, the number of courses of care for which there has been treatment entered, as well as the number of visits. The calculation of individuals, courses of care and visits is the same as the service mix report, where it filters to treatments that have a completion date within the report date range and then calculates the number of individuals, courses of care and visits the treatments were entered under. It is important to know that if wanting the total individuals, courses of care or visits for your agency, the counts for each provider in the output section of this report should not be summed. The service mix report should instead be used for this purpose. Summing the individuals in the provider output report would produce double counting, where more than one provider has performed treatment under the one individual, course of care or visit. The output section of the report includes the service value at the dental weighted activity unit rates. The appointment data on the right side of the report displays the number of appointments that have a scheduled date within the report date range. Only appointments that are displayed in the appointment screen are included in the appointment count, meaning cancelled and deleted appointments are excluded from the count. A common question is whether failed to attend appointments are included in the appointment count, and the answer is yes, they are. More detail on which status types are included in the appointment count can be found in a summary table under the Reports section of the Titanium User Manual. A count of failed to attend appointments for each provider is included in the appointment output, and this is expressed as a percentage of total appointments, so that a failed to attend rate for each provider can be assessed. A key element of the appointments section is the number of appointed hours. This merely sums the appointment length in hours for all appointments within the report date range that are appointed to the provider. In a way, the number of appointed hours provides a measure of the number of clinical hours worked or client contact time for each provider. Dividing the DWAR output into the number of appointed hours can allow you to measure productivity of each clinician when they are working clinically. The total appointed hours could also be compared against your records of the number of days clinicians are employed for at your agency to gauge how much of their employed time is spent on clinical care. These measures are highly valuable in monitoring clinician productivity. The appointment section of the report also quantifies the number of appointed hours where the clients have failed to attend. It also provides a count of appointments where the client has been marked through the appointment status as having attended, but no valid treatment has been entered that is dated the same date as the appointment record. These appointments can be identified by running the attended appointments with no treatment report that is described in one of the other report training videos in this series. So overall, the Provider Output Summary Report is a highly useful and recommended report to run regularly for monitoring and providing your individual clinicians feedback on their output and productivity.